Ultium Sales was trying to start giving them wage increases, which we're all for, but told them that, hey, just because they're giving something to you now don't mean they can take it back if you don't have a collective bargaining agreement.
Are you on? Which side are you on?
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We have on the line UAW Servicing Representative Chuck Davenport and Ultium worker Derek Kinzer. Derek, Chuck, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Appreciate your time this morning.
By the hall that was instrumental at Ultium is Frank Allen.
I'm sorry, could you, we accidentally had you muted there for a second, and I just caught the last where you mentioned Frank Allen. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, he happened to stop by the union hall this morning. He's just sitting here while we were doing this. So he's been instrumental in the Ultium campaign as well.
Great, great. Well, happy to have anybody from over there that we can. Love to hear from folks in successful union campaigns about what's been going on over there. So appreciate y'all's time. And so I'll start with you, Derek. If you could you tell folks that are listening why Ultium workers wanted to unionize in the first place?
Well, appreciate you having me. It had a lot to do with just a lot of different issues. We're, seeing gaps in one department to the other on standards, on how they operate. Safety issues was a big one for me. Just a lot of inconsistencies. Managers, supervisors allowing things here and not allowing it there, and just we need that union to keep things standardized and have accountability, I felt like, for the management.
Right. And that was mentioned, I think that was actually the first thing that was mentioned in one of the recent UAW videos about the campaign announcing, I think, the victory. And it's something that I was really excited by because, when we talk about union campaigns, and especially when people hear about union campaigns, the first thing they think about is the wages, right? That union workers want to make more money. And we do want to make more money, and we do make more money, but it's also about that level of control in your workplace, that level of that ability to not be completely at the whim of your employer to do whatever they want every day that you come into work, and not worried about like, oh, is what I'm doing today going to be totally different? Is the boss going to have a totally different kind of line today? You have an amount of consistency and control on the job, and that's something that I really think that we can do more as union workers ourselves to emphasize and to talk to people about, because I think that's a very common issue that people have.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like if those saying, if you treat people like kids, they'll act like kids. You treat them like adults, they'll act like that. If you give power them, to make decisions, to take ownership in their areas, they're more likely to be more successful, and the company's going to be more successful. So,
exactly. And so, even granting the issues that you had, with low pay and the working conditions that were kind of changing pretty regularly, lots of workplaces across the country have issues like that, and unfortunately, for one reason or another, union campaigns either don't get off the ground at these workplaces or they fall short when they come to an election. But y'all were able to win your union. You got voluntary recognition. And so, I'm interested in what were some of the ways that you were able to get people to support the campaign, and fight back against some of the anti-union propaganda that management and the culture really beats into us. And I guess, Frank, interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I actually had to go head on with some of the, the supervisors and the leads over there in the building, as far as, them making threats towards the workers, as far as if you talk about the union, if you mention the union, if you, even incline that you're interested in the union, you're going to get fired. And I kind of stepped out to draw them out to say, that is wrong information. This plant will become union. Not only is it our right to unionize, but, if somebody can stand on the line and talk about sports, they can talk about the union as well. And as far as that goes, I was always taught that, if you give a man a tool, he can build a building, but if you give him the knowledge, he can build the city. And a lot of these folks in here, not only do they need the information, but they need the training as well, that the union provides. And I think it's a big step for us.
Right, right. Derek, what about you? What were some of the things that you heard from your fellow workers that may have been that maybe were initially skeptical, and what were some of the ways that you were able to overcome that skepticism?
Well, you get all kinds of information, feedback. A lot of it was like, they were trying to match what the union was doing in Ohio, our parent plant, and so like they were giving us a bonus, but they were getting profit sharing, and they would, well, they're going to take that profit sharing away from us, or that bonus. I'm sorry, or the GM workers that are here close to us, they're going to take our jobs, and just all kinds of misinformation like that. But the way I countered anything, and it's the way I've always approached being 18 years union, is when I'm talking to someone back, I say it's just basically like this phone here. You got a contract with that company to have this phone service. It's the same way. It's a simple contract between me and that employer. And instead of me having to go fight for my wages, me go have to fight for training, we're going as a collective unit. And a lot of times when you approach it simple like that, a lot of people, it makes sense to them. I feel like that helped a lot.
Right, right. And Chuck, what about you? Was there anything that sticks out as you were, supporting these workers in the campaign and trying to help them think through some of these arguments that they were hearing against the union? Anything that sticks out to you as something notable?
Well, it was one of the things was they were the Ultium sales they would start giving them wage increases, which we're all for. But like what we said, there was so much information around. We told them, hey, GM workers are not coming over there. They can't take your job. We told them what the process was, how that works. We also told them that, hey, just because they're giving something to you now don't mean they can take it back if you don't have a collective bargaining agreement. And so, we had a very good in-plant committee. These two gentlemen were very instrumental in that, to go around and talk on break and stuff like that in the parking lot. We had people coming to the union hall, which is right down the street. We were trying to give them everything that they were saying that were being told was wrong. We were giving them the correct information so they could go back into the plant. And we finally got some of that turned around early. Whereas the company's like anything, they're trying to scare people. So we were able, with the help of our in-plant committee, to get that turned around so that people were getting the right information.
And so, Frank, you may not know this, but we're broadcasting out of Huntsville, Alabama. We're also on the radio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Whitesburg, Kentucky, and New Orleans, Louisiana. But I think the only auto plant that is in our listening area that folks are going to hear just on the radio. We're also online, but the only auto plant that I can think of that's within our radio listening area, I believe, is the Toyota plant in Huntsville. Toyota Mazda, and it's not union right now. Obviously, the UAW has a big campaign to organize. The goal is all of the non-union automotive manufacturing facilities in the country, with a huge portion of them being in the South, including obviously this Toyota plant. And so, I hear from Toyota workers. I hear from some people that are interested in the union. I hear from some people that are maybe not as interested in the union. But they're watching the UAW. All of these stories, they watched the strike last year. They watched the, really good contract that the UAW was able to get. They watched the election at Volkswagen and then in Mercedes. I think the Ultium unionization has kind of gone under the radar, and so we hope to be a part of the corrective on that and make sure that people know about it. For the Toyota workers that are listening right now, maybe working, maybe they've got a headphone in and they're listening to us right now. What would you have to say to them? What would be some of your advice, or what would your message be to them if you were able to talk to them?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Toyota because a few years ago, actually, I was going to accept a position at Toyota. I went down and interviewed, and some of the benefits and some of the conditions, didn't reach my level of acceptable as far as what they had to offer. And I've worked for different plants around, that were union and weren't union. I worked at Nissan plant over here in Tennessee, which was not union. I worked at GM over here in Spring Hill, which is Tennessee. And I find that, the best working conditions and the best working class of people are union. They have the best training in the world, and they're the most, honest and reliable people that you can depend on.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Right. I think that's that's worth taking into account, and the idea that having that better training and the safety is another thing that is something that I don't think that folks that are outside of unions think about very much when they think of what are the benefits of unionization. The guaranteed higher level of training and the higher level of safety that you get. There was a study that came out, I think it was sometime last year, about safety in coal mines. And union coal mines have something like up to an 80% less rate of fatalities within the coal mines. I mean, you are 80% less likely to die in a mine if the mine is unionized. That's a huge step up. I don't think the difference is as drastic in an auto plant, but it is pretty drastic. I think there was a recent report from Alabama Arise that maybe y'all are familiar with, maybe you're not. The UAW used it extensively in their Mercedes campaign that talked about how an Alabama auto worker is 30% more likely to go through an amputation at work than an auto worker in Ohio or Michigan. These are real things, right? That folks should, take into consideration when you're considering whether, do you want to put all of this in the hands of the boss, or do you want to have some amount of control? Right. So
safety is the biggest one.
Yes, absolutely. So, Chuck, if I understand correctly, the workers at Ultium now come under the national agreement, and they're immediately getting something like a 35% raise. Can you explain to us how that works, and how workers are reacting to this rapid increase in wages?
Well, they will fall right up under the national agreement. And that is one of the points that Ultium tried to use against the union. So what they did is the wages at Ultium can't be less than 75% of the UAW-GM national agreement. And what they started doing when the workers started showing interest in the UAW, they started going ahead and giving them pay raises even before they were recognized as UAW. And they were doing that as a way of trying to keep us out. So there's a lot of articles, in the media saying they got an automatic jump. They were already getting a lot of that, because the company was doing that to try to tell the workers, hey, we're going to pay you that way anyway. You don't need the union. But like we also got a lot of the workers to understand is next week, if you're not union, they could go ahead and take that back. Yep. And there's nothing you could do because you're an employee at will. Right. And so that was a tool that the company, even though we're amalgamated local here at 1853 is a local, we have 11 different units right here in town. So there's 5,000 active UAW members that's in this town, plus probably almost that amount that's out of this local that's retired. So it was real good to have, to add the 950 here at Ultium to this local, because this town is a union town, and every supplier that comes to us or comes to the hall, we try to meet with the workers because we want to try to unionize every plant we can in town.
Right. Yeah.
They use it as a tool to try to keep us out by going ahead and front loading some of the wages, even though they hadn't fell under the national agreement.
I knew that you represented 1853 represented folks at Spring Hill, the GM plant. I actually was on the picket line over in Spring Hill in 2019. But I didn't realize that you had 10 other bargaining units. That's fantastic. Chuck, can you speak to the importance of the strong bargaining position that the UAW took and was able to win in the negotiations last year in getting this shop unionized? What's the connection there between the contract that you won last year, and these people being able to get a union?
When they took GM on and they took the big three on and they took them on and they started pulling plants out on a strike, I think that give us a heck of a lot more leverage, because all these GM's one of them, Ford, Stellantis, they never envisioned that people in electric battery plants were going to be making the wages they're going to be making today. They wanted to keep their wages low. They didn't want them to be part of the UAW. They wanted us to have to go through campaigns. And so I think when our International Executive Board and our president, Shawn Fain, had them down and had them started pulling plants out and really putting the pressure on, it was instrumental in them able to give us and get them to agree for a card check. One of the last plants that come out that they brought out on strike was here at Spring Hill Manufacturing. And that was a big hit to General Motors, because that plant not only makes ICE vehicles, which is gas, they also make electric vehicles on the same line. So they're a dual source plant. And General Motors hated to see that Cadillac Lyriq not being made. So it was that give them the pressure to put them over the hump and get this agreement where we can have some neutrality and have a card check agreement in these plants.
Right. Chuck, political leaders in Tennessee have really been much less vocally anti-union than in Alabama. In the Mercedes campaign, we saw it was really just an onslaught. I mean, literally every week there was a new op-ed, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, from not just, random people within the community, from, the governor, from 6 governors in the South, from state representatives, from the commerce secretary, from, just all sorts of, from preachers, just all sorts of people coming out full-throatedly against the union, against the UAW. They even had a local preacher in Tuscaloosa literally walking the shop floor and encouraging people to vote against the union. I mean, really pretty disgusting stuff. And political leaders in Tennessee have engaged in stuff like that. I think 2014 against Volkswagen comes to mind. But since the strike in 2023, it seems like the political leaders in Tennessee, even though there's been here and there's been some, for sure they're not big fans of you guys by any means, but it seems like they've kind of more or less accepted that the UAW is in Tennessee and you're not going anywhere. And so they're not really going to be fighting you super hard. Is that how you see it, or am I just missing something?
Well, I think it's a little bit different. They are fighting us. Governor Lee and all the other Southern governors were there against Volkswagen. Governor Lee has been in the plant at Volkswagen and telling them how they don't need to be unionized. The problem, the difference here in Spring Hill is General Motors has been here since the late 80s. General Motors is this plant right here in Spring Hill is the largest General Motors plant by square foot in the world. So they don't really meddle with GM too much. It's really, I was telling some of the Ultium guys, when GM runs out is putting out a brand new product, Governor Lee, all the senators, all the county and state representatives, they're out here for a photo op. Right. So I don't think they want to take on GM. And even some of our side was concerned about, hey, if they give you card check, they're going to stop, don't want to give you incentives. We negotiated the Cadillac Lyriq back in 2020, and we negotiated a new investment into Spring Hill Manufacturing. Spring Hill Manufacturing is on 2,100 acres, and this Ultium plant, which is 2.8 million square feet, sits right on General Motors Spring Hill property. So the politicians like votes. They don't want to come over here and mess with the people in this area. I think that's because of the longevity and the history of GM being in Spring Hill. It's a lot different than, say, a Nissan or a Volkswagen.
I see. Derek, to the extent that there has been, even though at Ultium, there wasn't maybe a concerted kind of anti-union campaign, but of course I'm sure that y'all saw some of the stuff from Alabama's political leaders against the Mercedes campaign, and I'm sure you saw some of the stuff against the Volkswagen campaign where people were opposed to it. What effect did that have on your coworkers at Ultium? Were there some people that were like, oh, well, I don't think Governor Bill Lee would like this. I think that I'm probably going to abstain because of Governor Bill Lee. Were there any people like that?
I saw very little of that, more of, and I think it's more of educating them on what the union does. I think even in Alabama, the stuff you're talking about, that guy walking up the shop floors and stuff, it sounds like they're not educated on really what a union is. I think a lot of times they've got a preconceived idea of what it is, and that's in no case it. But I think that's the big thing, and that's what I don't spend a lot of time with people who are going to start just putting up walls. I go to the ones who are receiving that information, and they're going to spread it amongst the other people in the community. And when they start seeing the benefits we're getting, we got to really sell that to people. Like, look what we're getting now. Look what we're getting. And that, I think that's how you defeat it at Toyota too. You got to keep pushing that information out, the positive out there on them.
Right. Derek, Frank, Chuck, I really appreciate y'all taking the time to talk to us today. Is there anything that you wanted to make sure that you were able to speak about before we let you go?
I think and for all places in the South, people's got to stand up for their rights. People needs to want a seat at the table.
Yeah.
They need to better they should want to better themselves and not listen to all the rhetoric. The governors that are the politicians that get involved, they're just trying to keep unions depressed. And in turn, they're keeping good people in these plants from making a living wage. And that's what people ought to see. You're the one that pays your household bill. That governor don't.
Right.
Or that politician don't. So make things better for yourself and quit listening to all their rhetoric, because these plants that spend these companies that spend billions of dollars building these plants, they're not just going to walk away.
Right. Exactly. All right. So if I'm a Toyota worker and I've been convinced I want to join the UAW, where do I go, Chuck?
Well, you could go to UAW.org. There's a avenue to reach out to organizers. We have different places that reach out to this because they see this local, and they usually direct them to the international, and then we bring in organizers or temporary organizers to do probes to see how much interest we have. So it's real easy. If they go to the international UAW website, they can go on that site and they can request contact. And if they leave their information, we will have somebody, one of our organizers in the organizing department will reach out to them.
Chuck, thank you very much. Frank,
and they reach out to us in the local, or they get that information where they can reach out to the international. We have organizers down there, so I just hope the people keep fighting for their seat at the table and their voice.
Absolutely. Chuck, Frank, Derek, I really appreciate y'all's time. Thanks.
Thank you.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.